This is ODAT Chat, your instant connection to recovery and community, one day at a time. This podcast may contain strong language, sexual content, and spiritual truth. Listener discretion is advised.
This podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. This is actually my personal favorite app. I currently have about 60 titles on my phone, and I actually didn't even realize I had that many until I started writing this intro. But if you're anything like me, when you have occasional voices in your head that are not so positive, it's nice to be able to fill my head with positive things like books and learn something positive that'll not only benefit me, but benefit someone else. So if you like Audible books, you can actually get your first book free through audible.com. And what you can do to get your first free book is go to odatchat.com. You'll see the offer on the right-hand side. And yeah, first hit's free, and I know you'll love it. Welcome to ODAT Chat, where we talk about how to stay sober one day at a time. My name is Arlina, and I'll be your host. If you're new here, this is a podcast where my guests and I talk about how to recover from alcoholism and addiction. We typically spend the first half of the podcast on the backstory, but the magic is really in the solution, so we try to focus on that on the second half. I'm looking to uncover the moments of clarity, the revelations, and the tools and practices for healing which lead to long-term recovery. If you're enjoying the podcast, please consider a $5 monthly donation. Been costing about $250 a month, so any help is much appreciated. You can do so by visiting odatchat.com. There's a donate button on the right. So today I'm sharing a conversation with my dear friend, Dan. I have known Dan for probably, maybe 23 years now. I have never seen him loaded, but I have seen him transform over the years. Dan is a fast-talking, fun-loving guy with 30 years of recovery, and he has an amazing story. So you're going to want to buckle up for this one because you're in for a wild ride. So that's all I'm going to say about this one. This episode will literally speak for itself. So let's roll. Well, Dan, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited to learn that you've heard a whole bunch of episodes already.
Oh yeah, I've listened to a lot of them when I'm traveling for work. I'm like, let's listen to some podcasts. See what's going on.
No, that makes me so happy. So you know the drill, right?
Sure.
You know how we start out. So do you want to talk a little bit about like what you do professionally? Actually, let's talk about what you do professionally for a second, because I don't know if you know this, but, you knew that I had the sciatic nerve back pain. Okay, mm-hmm. So you do acupuncture and a bunch of other stuff. Mm-hmm. That back pain you saw me, I saw you twice. You treated me twice. It has not returned. How long ago was that? Was that a year ago?
Probably.
Maybe longer?
Yeah, around a year ago, I think.
That back pain was with me for years, and it would stop me in my tracks. It was so painful for so long. So thank you for healing me.
Oh, you're welcome.
That was fucking amazing.
So do you want me to tell you what I do? Or kind of?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so for people who don't know, what I do is that I'm an acupuncturist and herbalist by trade. I like to say that I'm a Chinese medicine doctor. And I do...
a big, tall, white, blonde, blue-eyed.
Yes, exactly. I like to say that I'm here to help the big, dumb white guys like me with Chinese medicine, which is, I know, not politically correct. But as you listen, you'll know that I'm not politically correct.
All right.
But the other one is that I also do cupping, like you've seen with Michael Phelps.
Yeah.
And then I do rock tape, which is you see these athletes, like the basketball players with tapes on their shoulder. I'm certified in that. And as well as I do something called cranial sacral work, which is more, I guess we kind of call it energetic medicine or stuff like that. It helps with the head stuff and trauma. And then I do a lot with also ear acupuncture and stuff like that, and massage, of course. I've got these something called a DSM, which I call Thor's hammer. It's that thing that hold,
Dude,
and it does that. But the best thing though, it always makes people laugh, is that I have a car buffer. And I use the car buffer on people, and they're always like blown away, like, what is that? The car buffer. But it all
seems, like the industrial strength vibrator.
Yeah, it's like one of those things where I say that my practice is integrative acupuncture, and what I mean by that is that I'll integrate just about anything into what I do as long as I know that it helps people. So if it's using the car waxer or using the cupping or using needles or using all sorts of different devices and also techniques, like for example, sometimes a lot of my practice I think is simply listening to people, letting people have a voice or being heard, like that sense of being heard, because the weirdest thing for my practice for me, and this has to do with recovery and all that stuff, is that I do a lot with women who suffer from PTSD.
Really?
Yeah, which is really trippy because
From
I never
trauma?
Yeah, like women who've been like sexually assaulted,
abused.
almost exclusively sexual assault. And
Wow.
and also I've worked with some cops and things like that who are like violent kind of gun bang bang stuff, but mostly it's women who are have been sexually assaulted. And I think it's interesting because, like you said, I'm a big white guy and maybe I'm a teddy bear or something like that, but my energy is male energy, but also I'm like safe. And so these women can work some of their stuff out. It's a mind blower to me. I'm humbled by that fact that people trust me with that aspect of themselves to reveal after someone has harmed them in a way that's truly devastating.
Yeah, no, that's really important work. It's really important work. Not only that you can heal somebody physically, but to be able to reach that part and
exactly.
and help mitigate that. That's really important work.
Yeah, it's trippy. It's not like something I like hang my sign on like, hey, I do this, but it's like one of those things where it comes
Sexual trauma served here.
Exactly.
Or resolved, I should say.
But like
No,
most, like I
awesome.
said, but mostly what I do is stuff around orthopedics and trauma and people hurt themselves. Hips, backs, shoulders, knees,
right,
necks.
yeah.
All that kind of
Hurt
stuff.
themselves, not like self-abuse.
Yeah, hopefully not. I hope not. That'd be really crazy.
That's weird.
But
Okay.
I've done that for.
Yeah.
I've been in practice now for 7 years. And
7 years, because you used to be a sales guy.
yeah, well, I was
Silicon Valley.
yeah, high-tech sales,
that's what I've been
high-tech
doing.
marketing, sales engineer, sales guy.
You were on the sales engineer side?
Yeah, I was an SE for a long time. I did the sales stuff, but also I did technical marketing and all that stuff. I worked in a bunch of big names in the Valley and stuff, and that was all. It was all required for me to get sitting in front of you. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things where I had to do all that stuff because when people come and see me and they explain what their jobs are like, I understand. That makes me different than like, for example,
Connecting the dots.
yeah, it's like connecting the dots where, like, for example, being a kid from the Valley and being raised here, I understand versus like some of my teachers from China and they're masters at what they do, but they don't understand what it's like to commute for 45 minutes in the Valley, go to a job, feel the stress, come home and not have enough time in the day and all that. They don't have that real world experience. And then there's also the people like, well, as you know, like I'm not the acupuncturist guy who's like trying to be a quasi Asian guy. I'm not wearing my kung fu outfit and, pretending that I'm going to grow a goatee and do all this stuff.
No Fu Manchu.
No Fu Manchu today, And so, but that being said, it's like I think people think I'm authentic in who I present to them.
Well, you are.
And
you
that,
know who you are.
Yeah, and that being said, it makes people, my hope is it makes people more authentic to present who they are. You know what I mean? Like you're only going to get as real with me as you feel I'm real with you. To a certain extent. I mean, it's a weird,
Absolutely.
Because there's that whole like, people like, oh, I'll tell them whatever, I'll tell them that I haven't drank and used drugs for a long time. I'll tell them about the things I suffer from and whatever else and how I've found solutions, both in and out of like Chinese medicine and recovery stuff and, learning to meditate and hanging out with other people who do the similar sort of things or like even the whole idea, and I think it's essential to recovery for me, is this idea of by sharing my brokenness and what's going on, it allows people to go, oh, I'm broken too, and I can be with this person. And I think that's what, like, the whole recovery gig for me is this. Like, I'm not one of those believers that, like, oh, we should all dress up and look beautiful all the time to impress new people and have them go, oh, we're all shiny and bright, and so you should come and join us. That's attraction rather than, a promotion rather than attraction. It's like the attraction thing for me is like, this is who I am, and this is how I deal with who I am, both good and bad.
And it's okay.
Yeah, and it's really okay. And it's like you too can come and join us at the party, as long as you know how to behave in a certain way. Like we're talking about people who are like, you can't continue, like it's not old behavior when you're doing it today.
It's just bad behavior.
Exactly.
That's all. Bad is bad.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's back the truck up and let's talk about. I've known you for my entire recovery, which I've been sober 23 years.
Yep.
I'm coming up on a anniversary, which is
awesome.
kind of cool. But I've known you the whole time. Mm-hmm. We used to be young at the same time. That was awesome.
Exactly, over at SNL.
So, but what I don't, and I know you grew up in the area, but what I don't really know a lot about is like your family history. Like, what were your parents like? Do you have siblings?
Oh yeah. So my deal is this: is that I'm the youngest of 3.
Okay.
And I have an older brother and an older sister. And I'll just leave it at that because they probably wouldn't want me talking too much about their lives.
Yeah, this is not about them.
Exactly. And then my parents got divorced when I was about, I think, 5 or 6 years old. Oh. And my father ended up becoming a terrible alcoholic. Oh. And his father was a terrible alcoholic. And alcoholism runs through my family like a bad dog. I mean, it's just all over the place.
Bad dogs run a lot, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. Like, the bad dogs run around the yard.
Bad dog. Okay,
exactly. Bad dog, no biscuit. And and it's one of those things. So on that side of my father's side of the family, I'm the first one to break the chain.
Oh, God bless you.
So, and I was like, I like to call it the freeze-dried alcoholic. Like you add alcohol to me and boom.
Instant crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it wasn't all bad. I mean, like the thing was like I'm an alcoholic, yes, but also I've got ADD, and so it's like you start mixing those things together, and that kind of stuff, and that stuff ends up just I drink and use drugs, and I get better, and I get smarter, and I do better in school when I'm like stoned. And
you did better in school.
Oh, absolutely, much
you
better.
Could sit and listen.
Like I'm like an honor student, like I'm the guy who like the teacher's like, why aren't you getting all A's? And I'm like, because I don't want to work that hard. I just want to play with my friends and have a good time, and all that stuff. And so that being said, it's like when you have that going on and then all of a sudden start getting loaded and then it's like, it's like just packing the room full of dynamite.
How old were you when you started getting loaded?
The first time I can remember really getting drunk on purpose, I was summer of 3rd grade. Were you 8 or 9 years old at a friend's wedding? My parents. I still know these people. As a matter of fact, I still see them. I still see them today. And I got drunk at their wedding, and it was like one of those things where I got drunk and had a good time, and I danced with all the girls, and went home, and I passed out, and I threw up, and my mother was like, "See what that does to you?" And I was like, "Yes, I know exactly what it does. I want to do that again."
You're like, "Yes, thank you for pointing that out."
Exactly. Like as my friend Dave used to say, he goes, "I have an alcohol deficiency, and as long as I drink as much as I can, I am going to be okay."
Alcohol deficiency, that's crazy. But why did you take that first drink? Was it just a thing to do? Or?
Oh, no. It's like one of those things where that's probably not the first time I had a drink. That was the first time I consciously chose to get drunk. Like I was the guy who my father's like, go across the room and pour the brown stuff, put some ice in it and have some water and bring it over here. And, I was around drinking. I saw what drinking did. And my dad was... Yeah, but it was also, he was the life of the party. He had a good, it wasn't all tears. It was like a good time. And like, I have a picture of me, and this is classic, like I'm blonde-haired, blue-eyed, probably 6 years old, in lederhosens at a German Oktoberfest.
That's what you should wear.
Wear lederhosens if I talk. Yes, but...
sorry, so Dan is about to do this big meeting. How many people go to this Tuesday meeting? Sorry, it's a Saturday night.
It's a huge meeting.
Like
I don't know. Hundreds.
They record it, and this is how you get on the speaker circuit.
Yeah, which I just laugh about that concept.
Okay, and we were talking about what you should wear.
Yeah.
And you said that you were going to wear a powder blue tuxedo with a ruffled...
Yeah, but like 1980s powder blue tuxedo.
And then...
my wife said, no, I should wear my elf costume, Buddy the Elf, and say that I'm Buddy the Elf and I'm an alcoholic.
Because you look just like Will Ferrell when he's dressed up as Buddy the Elf.
Exactly.
Which is hilarious.
It's hilarious.
But no.
But now I'm going to go in lederhosens.
That'll be super fun. Okay.
But I'm wearing lederhosens, and I'm at this Oktoberfest in San Jose, and I've got like a little kid's boot, a little glass boot that's probably got some beer in it, and my father's got like the big liter boot, and he's drinking, and like that was my example of how to a good time.
You were his mini-me.
Yeah, exactly. And I was a little kid, so I don't know how old I was, but I can remember.
Was this before your parents' divorce?
No, this is after my parents' divorce. My dad married a gal from Germany, and so I had a German stepmother.
Perfect.
It was really crazy. And that being said, I can remember sitting in this place called Fox and Hounds in Saratoga or Cupertino as a kid, drinking Roy Rogers and Shirley Temples and eating maraschino cherries. So my dad sat and drank in the bar and, all that kind of stuff. So it was all, drinking was all very normalized and common and stuff like that, And the truth was that when I realized what alcoholism was, or what my dad was an asshole, it's like I don't want to be like that, So part of my story is much more drugs than alcohol. Okay. But that being said, it's like, I the first thing I can remember doing is getting drunk and thinking, I want to do that again. But as both of us know, it's like in our adolescence, drugs scoring pot was way easier than getting alcohol.
Oh, absolutely.
And so, I smoked pot, I drank.
But we had, I don't know about you, but I had friends whose parents drank, and so there was always booze in the house.
Oh, exactly. What was that? And also it's like, the whole shoulder tapping thing, like going to...
Can you believe that was a thing? Is that still a thing?
I don't think so. The kids, I know now it's like they just straight up steal. Like I heard the kids,
because nobody shoulder taps anymore, so they have to steal, right?
Yeah, so they go to Safeway. No one chases you at Safeway. They have a no chase policy.
They do. Oh, maybe we should never do that.
And so the kids go and they
I did
not
know that. Okay, good to know.
Crazy.
Okay, so drinking is normalized, and your parents' divorce. Do you feel like your parents' divorce had some kind of impact on you?
I was real small. I don't think I had an.
You don't really remember them together that much?
No, not really. And I remember like my dad just raging a lot. So my dad was a rager guy, and so.
And listen, so after they divorce, he remarries, and he continued.
He remarries one of his drinking buddies from the bar.
Perfect.
My stepmother and
maybe they knew each other before.
Exactly, that could be
just a guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And
stranger things have happened.
And so they got married, and so my stepmother was another alcoholic, and she was a codependent who helped my dad drive him to his grave, in my opinion. But
Oh, so your father passed?
Yeah, my dad died during my senior finals of high school.
What?
Yeah, from alcoholism. Well, they don't say it on the death certificate of alcoholism, but he died from alcoholism because of the fact that he was going in for some sort of surgery. While he was in surgery, his organs started failing. Things started collapsing, and boom,
done.
He's done.
What kind of surgery was he having? Was it benign,
I don't remember what it was, to be honestly. I think I've intentionally forgotten. I have no idea what it was, but it was one of those things where it was like it gave me the ability to go off and drink and drug. Like I'm 18 years old.
It was like your.
Oh, it's my ticket to ride.
Okay.
Why are we drinking so much? My dad died.
Yeah.
Fuck you. Leave me alone. But the funny part is that I had a whole crew of friends who were like, "What do you want now?" Like we know how to help you deal with your pain. And
so what is it? What do you want?
Yeah, exactly. Do you want to smoke pot? Do you want to do cocaine? Do you want to drink? Whatever. So
and the answer was yes.
Absolutely. What do you do? Please. I want more. But the funny thing for me is that when I turn 18 years old, I get a bunch of money from a car crash that I was in, that I was a victim of in a drunk driving accident.
You're kidding.
No, I got like over $30,000, and in 1982, and then
which was a lot of money.
Yeah. And then
were you walking or in a car? Or?
I was in a car that crashed up on a mountain road that smashed into a tree, and so my elbow shattered, and so I lost ability.
Oh, you have a
huge scar.
I never noticed that before.
Yeah, and so I have a huge scar.
It's enormous.
And that being.
Did you tell people it was a shark bite?
No, I told them it was a snake bite. Snakes take from AC/DC. That's what it is.
Yeah.
But
so
then
you get some money.
I get the money. I turn 18 years old. I get a bunch of money. My father dies, and I decide before that to go to Europe. So I have a Eurail pass and a backpack and a bunch of foreign exchange friends. So less than 2 weeks after I graduated from high school, and less than 2 weeks after my father's death, I'm in Belgium.
Oh my God!
And I spent 4.5 months traveling in Europe, just drunk.
Do you remember?
I've got photographs of things. Yeah, I remember a lot of it. I had a really good time. It was great.
That's 4.5 months is a long time.
Yeah, and I had a great time and all that stuff. And then I came back to the United States and went to West Valley and all that kind of went on with my life or whatever. And things just kind of slowly but surely, 4 years later, I've spent all the money. It's all gone. I've got a DUI. I've crashed multiple cars. I've done lots of terrible things. It was just spinning around the drain, kind of thing. And then that's when I kind of the last car crash I was in was really had a lot of drama and trauma in it. And so that being said,
you had one DUI.
Mm-hmm.
And then a multiple car accident.
Yeah, exactly.
Was that last car accident an injury?
Oh yeah, my sister. I was in the last car crash I was in. I was a passenger, and my sister and I were in a car in southern Louisiana where my cousin who was driving went from a blackout to unconscious behind the wheel, and the car jackknifed into a levee, and her head hit the dashboard and cracked open like a watermelon.
Your sister?
Yeah, my sister. And my cousin's hit the steering wheel and broke his nose, and I was asleep in the back and was tossed around like a rag doll and had to crawl out of the car and then pull my sister out of the window. But the problem was that she was seatbelted in, and the doors didn't open, so I had to roll down the window and pull her out, and then up a hillside that was probably, I don't know, say 35 feet up a hillside.
God. How old were you then?
I was 22.
22.
And then pull my cousin out. What ended up happening was that I had my sister in my arms, and she was, we've seen some of the head wound. They bleed like no one's business. She had over 360 stitches put in her head that night.
Wow.
So it ends up that I am in the middle of nowhere, Louisiana, at like 2 o'clock in the morning, let's say. I don't know if it's 2 o'clock or 3 or...
No cell phones back then.
Yeah, no cell phones, no nothing. And I said a prayer like, God, please don't let my sister die in my arms. I'll do anything. And I'm sitting in the middle of the road, in the middle of nowhere, and up rolls a truck with 2 guys in it. And one of the guys looks like me, had like Peter Frampton, long blonde hair, and a shirt on that said, "Life's a bitch and then you die." And I was like, fuck. And then what ends up happening is that they load us in, and we go to the little local hospital, and these guys look at me, and they said, "We can't be involved with the law. Bye." And disappeared.
What?
Like little angels. Like if angels exist, these guys were like, and they were probably not good guys. You know what I mean? Like, think about that.
Listen.
And that being said, they helped me on that last night, and
saved your sister's life.
Yeah, exactly, and all that stuff, and lots of other drama went into that. But within 24 hours later, I was back here in California, in Los Gatos, and it happens to be that the only doctor that my mother knows happens to be this guy, Dr. Jerry, who we all know. And next thing I know, I'm being chucked out by that guy, and he's so funny because at that time he didn't really put the piece together and thought that I need to go to Al-Anon. And this is like 1986, and I'm going to an Al-Anon meeting, and I'm like, those guys are the biggest pussies in the world, man. I don't want to go to that. I don't want these people are a bunch of fucking losers. Why would I go there? That makes no sense to me at all.
Yeah.
And that car crash was May 17th, 1986, and wow. I got sober July 27th, and my deal with that is that. And I think this is a real crux for me.
You've been sober since 1986.
Yeah.
That summer.
Yeah, summer of '86, July 27th. But the thing about it was that I tried to control and enjoy my drinking. Like I didn't go to recovery a moment before I was ready to go. Like I wasn't one of those people like, I'm just going to try. Like I had burned out. Like I literally
burned it down.
Yeah, like literally I was on the bridge by my parents' house on Lark Avenue, and I said my prayer was, I'm like a cradle Catholic kid, or whatever, and I don't have anything against Catholicism or anything like that. I don't mind it at all. That's all fine. But it had as much influence on my spirit as having blue eyes. I mean, it just didn't mean anything. Okay. And I still, though, I had let's make a deal, God. And I said, God, fucking help me or kill me. Do something. And I turned around, and that was on July 26th. And I turned around, and a guy that I sat next to in West Valley for a year, who I teased mercilessly about being sober, drove by. Right then and there, drove by like another one of these like doo 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 doo, and ended up. I said, "Hey, come on, just pull over." And I had this guy Ed help me, and I'm like, "Hey Ed, I think I need to go to AA."
Spiritual Ed?
No, not spiritual. You wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Ed sees his name, but anyway, he said, "I can't go to a meeting tonight, but I can have someone else take you." And I'm like, "Fuck that! I'm not going with anybody, but you.
Right.
Like your God put you in front of me. I'm going to go with you." And he's like, "Can you not drink tonight?" And I said, "Yeah, I cannot drink." So I went up in the mountains, I did a bunch of cocaine, and I smoked pot, but I didn't drink,
He wasn't very specific.
No, exactly. He wasn't specific at all. But that next day, I went to a meeting at 400 West Campbell. I watched my friend's mom, Sue, get a 5-year chip, and God works in a mysterious way. This gal from Saturday Night Live, her name was Bombshell Kelly, so she looked like a Playboy model, this beautiful girl. At the end of the meeting, gave me a hug and said, "Keep coming back." And I was like, yes, I may come back. This may actually work out for me on many levels. And that was the whole, and that's when I started going to, Saturday Night Live, and I started going to non-smoking meeting in Los Gatos, and just kind of, that was that. And at 40 days sober, I moved from here to UC Santa Barbara.
Oh my gosh, the land of the beautiful people.
Well, and land of the party. I mean, my roommate.
Oh, right.
My roommate was a drug dealer. All that
and you were able to stay sober through all that insanity.
Well, here's the crazy part about this is that whole like that do stuff is that I call up my roommate and I said, hey, I'm gotten sober and I need to know if you're cool if I'm sober and will you support me in being sober. I'm not saying that you have to do anything, but will you, Dan? You're a mess. You need to get your act together. Like, we totally support you. Like, all my derelict friends in Santa Barbara supported me
getting sober
to the point where it's like one night I was really doing poorly in school because my ADD comes up when I'm not drinking and using.
Okay.
And that being said, I was going to go get loaded. And he's like, and this is before the internet. He's like, you know what? Sit down. And he called Central Office of Alcoholics Anonymous in Santa Barbara, found out where their meeting was in Goleta, wrote down the directions and gave it to me and said, we'll talk about you drinking when you come back from one of those meetings.
Wow.
The drug dealer.
That's intense.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's like that.
Was this drug dealer actually using drugs?
Yeah, absolutely. Don't. No, exactly. Oh, yeah, he was actually drinking and partying and doing drugs and all that stuff. It was all going on.
Okay.
And that being said...
That is so bizarre.
I see this guy still today, and I'm like, why did you... Yeah, I go,
is he
why?
Sober?
No. And he has been at the time, but now he's loaded. But it's one of those things where that's his journey.
Right.
It's not mine to judge. But anyway, it's funny because I asked him, why did you do that? That was the right thing for you at the time. And it was. Like they're the guys who are like, they're like, dude, you need to stop. You can't handle it. Really? But that's the funny part because until I got I didn't go to a meeting for probably almost 2 months when I was down there, and I was getting pretty dry, if you would. And that's when I got into those early days of in Santa Barbara. It was kind of like I like to call it competitive recovery. It's like that whole idea of I don't want to have someone with less time farther in the steps than me, and I don't want someone with less time having a better commitment at the meeting than I've got.
Yeah.
I want to be the coffee guy, and I want to be the secretary, and don't you know, and that was kind of how it was.
Yeah.
I mean, that was and so I don't understand people who are like, you have to shove them into service or that kind of thing.
They're not ready.
I'm not. That's not my deal. I came done, and let's see how far this can go. And wow, I've actually stayed sober. That's a trip.
Yeah.
And that being said, oh yeah, and then it was kind of once when my first year of recovery down in Santa Barbara, no girl in recovery would date me because of the fact that it's you're new, you're off limits,
Yeah, no healthy girl.
Yeah, exactly. Let's put it that way. Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, they say that water seeks their own level, so it's a bad idea to start dating when you're new in recovery because you're kind of a low watermark.
Oh, exactly. Well, also, I tell guys that I work with that I go, hey, you don't want to date newcomers because it's like a baby that's got knife blades for arms. So when they hug you, they just stab you in the back and they don't even know it. I mean, it's like...
Yeah, it's not the hotbed of mental health.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
But that being said, though, it's one of those things where that's all, that's one of those things where I could, that's where the magic is. I mean, that's the whole thing where, there's so many, for me, Arlina, it's there's so many things that I can't put a thumb on, that's where, the whole thing, sometimes I know this off, but it's I go, oh, I'd like to be an agnostic or an atheist and think it's kind of cool in recovery not to believe in God and all this stuff and kind of hip. And that is not my experience. My experience is that there is something that has touched and grabbed me and pushed me and placed me in things and used people that are not devout, devout spiritual people by any means.
Yeah, like your Peter Frampton friends on the side of the road. God can use anybody.
Exactly. And that's really the thing that I go, okay, well, I'm not sure how this is going to play out, but as long as I try and, be true to me and a real honest, roll your eyes to the inside and say, who am I really all about?
Right, the self-examination.
Exactly.
Isn't it funny how we show up to recovery completely self-centered and incapable of doing self-examination?
Exactly. That's a weird, exactly. That's a weird dynamic.
Isn't that weird? Yeah.
Well, it's another guy you interviewed, Neil, talked about it. He says, after 30 years, when I came in, let's say I'm 99% self-obsessed, but now at 30 years, I'm only 97% self-obsessed.
That's progress.
Exactly. That's progress. But also that inability to like look at my own, like, I may not be much, but all I think about,
right.
That kind of stuff. But yeah, you're right about that idea of like, how self-examination is not part of most of the people who, before you get into recovery.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, blame.
Yeah, well, I think the difference, and I'm just spitballing here, but the difference between self-examination and being self-centered is the self-examination is being able to be objective about your actions and your behavior, like what actually happened, right?
Mm-hmm, exactly.
And the whole self-centeredness is what can I get? How do I manipulate the situation so I can get what I need or want or whatever?
Yeah. How do I play this?
Demanding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't typically have a lot of requests. A lot of demands.
Exactly. No, absolutely. And that's a journey unto itself. Mm-hmm. I mean, that I think the big journey is, like, I think it's like Pablo said it, or some of these guys I heard, most of the things
old-timers.
Old-timers said was like this idea that, you're going to meet this person, and this person's going to be all this wonderful stuff, and you're like, loving and kind and thoughtful, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, and that person's going to be the guy or gal you look in the mirror. It's going to be you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? I don't see that happening. I really don't believe that. And that being said, it's like,
over time.
Oh, exactly. Over time, it's like water on a rock. That's how I really believe a lot of that part of the Buddhist stuff, where it's like, over time, it all can change slowly, little by slow.
Absolutely.
But I'm also one of those ones where I mean, there's a lot of cliche stuff in the recovery, and it's like a lot of those things I'm like, I don't know if that's true at all times.
Like
but
what?
Slow is real. I don't know. I've had some profound things that have happened very quickly that didn't take, it's got to be slow for it to catch on. I don't know about that.
Not in every case.
No, not at all.
I feel like there's so many paradoxes in the program, let's just say, in 12-step oriented programs. You hear a lot of paradoxes because it feels like, the whole act as if. So are you being fake? Mm-hmm. Because we are taught to be authentic. So where does it apply, right? Are you being judgmental, or are you practicing discernment?
Oh, exactly.
There's a time and a place for every fucked up situation, and we have many.
Exactly. Don't judge, but be able to discern. Like, you need to. I was taught that early on. You need to be able to tell the wheat from the shaft. You need to be able to discern people.
Wheat from the shaft. I've never heard that one. Okay.
Because that's wheat is what you're going to make the bread with. The shaft you're just going to throw away.
Right.
And that being said,
if that's where the term comes from. Give them the shaft.
Possibly. Give them the shaft here. Wow. I don't know.
Sorry. You're not the only one suffering from
exactly. But that being said, it's like, because that discernment, is critical, I think,
Yeah, listen, oh my gosh. So here's the other thing. The whole men work with the men and the women work with the women. It's like, you have to know, if you're going to do recovery in a 12-step environment where there's men and women who are dysfunctional, you need to go in with like a set of rules.
Oh, exactly.
And one of the really important ones is that the men stick with the men and the women for a reason.
Absolutely.
Right. I remember showing up to the rooms, 12-step rooms at 25 years old. I have platinum blonde hair. You
I remember that.
I know, it was hilarious. And the women would pull me aside and say, be very careful. There's a lot of wolves in sheep clothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Because a lot of men are still running game. You have to be very careful.
Oh, absolutely. And I guess I'm lucky in that sense, is that when I got to recovery, it was one of those things where I still had all my childhood friends and all that stuff. Like, I wasn't a loner. I wasn't a guy looking for people and all that kind of stuff. It was more like one of those things where, like, most of my friends said, you need to get to recovery. Like we don't like you when you're drinking and using. We like you better when you're not drinking and using. So you need to go in there to get well so you can come and be with us.
Okay.
And like, that was my experience. So I was one of those guys where I came and I was like, huh. And then, like, I had a lot of old-time women were friends of my family. Like Peggy Z,
sure.
And Peppermint Patty and all these other gals who I knew, and they knew my family. Oh, Danny, we've been waiting for you.
We've been saving you.
Exactly. That's what Peggy Z told me. She
goes, fuck you.
Yeah, we're saving you a seat. I mean, like, literally, I was at her son's graduation party, drunk, telling her about my dad's death, at her house, and she told me at that time, she said, I don't remember it, she said, Danny, I told you I was going to save you a seat. And so when I got to recovery, I had no illusions about what I was getting myself into, and that's one of the things. And also, and I think this is really important in recovery, is to find some people that you can run with, that you can find someone that you like relate to or whatever. Like I went to a meeting, and the next day I talked to my best friend and his brother. And do you know PJ?
Probably.
Yeah. Anyway, the next day PJ goes, I want to go to a meeting with you. And so I got sober on a Sunday, and he went to a meeting with me on a Tuesday, and he ended up using Coke for a lot longer. So his sobriety is like 6 months after mine. But he and I have gone to meetings together for years and years and years and years. And I've known this guy since I was 8 years old.
Wow.
And the other part, too, is so funny. He says, we were at a meeting at Saturday Night Live, and someone approached him at the time and said, of the two of you, one of you will drink and will stay sober. And I told PJ at that time, fuck you, I'll make you a bet now. It's going to be you before it's me.
And it was.
And we made a bet.
Are you both still sober?
Yeah, we're both still sober.
Oh my God.
And I don't want to win that bet, but I don't want to lose that bet. But like when it comes down to like when I've been in true emotional pain, when you're like, oh yeah, you're only so many steps away and you're breaking down the steps and you're getting closer to your drink. I've got that thing like, fuck that. I don't want to tell PJ I drank.
Yeah.
And I don't want to lose. I've got as much ego. I don't want to lose my place in line, and I've got my pride, and I know myself enough where it's like I only want to do this once.
Yeah. So that's another one of those things is we're taught to sort of minimize, not eliminate, but minimize your pride and ego. And listen, we're talking about character defects, which are instincts that are just out of balance.
Oh, totally.
So I feel like the theme of my sobriety has been to find the balance and recommit.
Yeah, exactly.
Every time I fall off the beam, I'm like, oh, let's try. Time to get back on.
That's exactly. All. And it's one of those things because it's sobriety to me is very paradoxical. It's like Johnny O used to say about this whole thing, like sobriety, long-term sobriety is learning to live with unresolved problems.
Yes, it is.
Because I've got a lot of things that I could tell you offline that we spoke about. There's like things in my life that are far from ideal or perfect, but at the same time, I'm grateful for what I've got. I'm happy to be alive today and that kind of stuff. And I'm, like for example, you remember I was Angry Dan for many years. It's like, and people are like, you can't be that angry and stay sober. And I'm like, come a little closer so I can throttle you. Fuck you. And like the thing about it is that I was authentically angry. And people want to go, oh, your anger has to do with hurt. It's not a real emotion. I go, if I throw hot coffee in your crotch, you're gonna get mad. And it isn't because you're hiding your sadness. You're pissed.
It does fucking hurt, though.
Exactly. But that being said, like I had a lot of stuff that I was angry about. Yeah, I was pissed about. I mean, like one summer, my roommate, I come back from Costa Rica. My sponsor Dugan got diagnosed with cancer, and he was dying. Yeah. Surfer Chris, my roommate, OD'd from a Klonopin Vicodin overdose in my house. I broke my hand, and my girlfriend at the time broke up with me to date another guy in the program who I thought was my friend. He was like, hey, dude, I need to hang out with you because my heart's broken. My girlfriend's left me. All this shit's going on. Can I please? Oh, dude, I got to hang out with my kid and do that stuff. And that blew me away because it was like one of those things. I'm sitting outside this is when Saturday Night Live was at Blackford High School. I'm sitting outside the movie with Steve V. Okay, and at that time, Steve was doing Muay Thai kickboxing and was, all yoked up. Chris and Sarah get out of the car, kiss each other in front of me, come walk in the meeting, and Steve looks at me and goes, I'm not going to have to restrain you, am I? Because I wanted to kill him. Yeah. And it's like one of those things where that summer, like, that was one of those summers where, like, for me, it's like you kind of take your spiritual lint in your pocket and you get to look at what's the diamond and what's the crap. Right. And, and like kind of go through all this stuff and say, what's real here? What's like, where am I hurt? What's really going on? And what can I hold on to? Because, like, I'm one of those believers, like, you can be in a terrible amount of pain and say the third step all day long and take all the inventory of the world, and it's not going to take away your pain.
Right.
Until you're healed or you're healing or whatever goes on, this is what you're going to be in.
So that brings up a good question. In moments like that, what gives you relief? Because really, that's what drugs and alcohol are about.
Oh, exactly. No, honestly, what gives me relief more than anything else, and I've got to get back to it, is being near the ocean. I know that sounds crazy, but it's like being surfing, being in the water, being outdoors in nature. Like meditating, yes. Being with people that I know love me and allow me to be where I'm at and don't want to change me. You know what I mean?
Accepting what is, processing,
exactly,
physical exercise.
Oh, exactly. And this is what sucked at the time because I got a broken hand, so I couldn't go in the ocean. I couldn't ride my bike. I couldn't do anything because my hand's broken. And my sponsor's dying, and my roommate's OD'd. And it was like, you couldn't write this stuff.
It's a perfect storm.
Yeah, and but at the same time, it's like I'm one of those guys who, like that kind of crazy spiritual, like, fuck you, I'll kill you for my seat in recovery. You know what I mean? Because I know no matter how much pain that is, on the other side of that, of picking up, is a whole other world of problems.
Right.
Because like some of these people we mentioned, is that they have not stayed on the journey. Mm-hmm. And they have had in their own places. And I've watched that, like being at ground zero for people exploding. It is a very awing in both fear and beauty in a way. We're watching someone like just crash and burn and going, wow, what have I just seen? What am I around? And being at that, like, finding your roommate who's, Chris had like 14 years at the time, and he's unconscious on the kitchen floor, fucked up, and I'm like, wow, what do I do with that? And what I did is I picked up the phone, I hit redial, and talked to the last person he talked to, and that was his old girlfriend Cece. And I'm like, Cece, you need to come over here. And then I called L.A. Bob. I'm like, Bob, I need someone to help me. I can't lift this guy by myself. And we took him to Good Sam, and they pumped him full of charcoal and probably saved his life that night.
Oh my God, how scary.
Yeah, it was like one of those things where like, and there's no like, oh, let's just say a little third step, it's all gonna be okay, or whatever. Like, let's do the little, like, this is where shit hits the fan. And it's
that's heavy duty.
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm like, those are the things where I look at it and go, yeah, this is why I want to be sober. For me, and this kind of goes back to the car crash and all that kind of stuff for me about my recovery, is that so I can be of right mind and body to be of service to my fellows.
I love that. And since, I want to switch gears a little bit, because service is a huge part of your life now. You were able to make a career shift and dedicate your life your life to service and healing people. That must have been so scary, because listen, you're married, you got kids, you got a Silicon Valley mortgage.
Oh, absolutely.
That must have been really scary for you to be able to be like, hey, honey, I'm going to be the big white dude Chinese herbalist.
Exactly.
How did that go over?
Well, I'll say the first time that went over, my wife, who, let me let you know right now, I love dearly, and without her love and support, I would not have the job, that I have. Is that that being said, is that she was like, what are you talking about? Like, and my family was like, my parents were like, what, are you going to work on Chinese people? Like, what do you mean by that? And it's like, and it kind of net this really bottom line is that when I finished college, I went to Japan for a year with this jet program thing. The only guy who spoke English in the village I was at was a Buddhist priest. I got to hang out with a Buddhist priest for a year and meditate with him, come back to the United States after a year, move into the Santa Cruz Mountains. I am now hanging out in the Santa Cruz Mountains, working in a high-tech company and surfing in Santa Cruz. And then I started doing Tai Chi and Qigong and internal martial arts and doing all this stuff. And my Tai Chi teacher said, I'm going to go to Chinese medicine school. And I said, that's cool. And I started studying more with him. And he goes, I'm going to go do acupuncture. I go, I'd let you do acupuncture on me. And the first time I had acupuncture, Arlina, it was like getting high, not getting high. Yeah. Like I felt so good. I was like, I am not going to get arrested. And I feel this good.
Right.
Like it was like a mind blower. I was like, wow. And that changed me in a way like there's an alternative way of doing things that don't involve having surgery and taking drugs.
Right. A whole new world.
A whole new, like Alice in Wonderland, going through the looking glass and going, wow, what is this?
Okay.
And that's what sparked me. And I was still working in high tech. And my last job, I had been laid off because the company got bought by somebody else. And a lot of times what was going on is I wasn't getting fired from my job from lack of ability. It was more along the lines like the company is being bought by another company and now we're reorganizing and sorry, you're being riffed.
Yeah,
and
it's
like, what the hell? So I got tired of this and my wife was like, what would you do if you could do anything? And I said, I'll become a Chinese medicine doctor. And she was like, I might as well tell her, I want to go smoke crack. She's like, what?
She looked at you like you had 10 heads.
Exactly. Like, what? And it took many years of us working it out. And I stopped working. And I had 2 small children. And we got a lot of daycare. It wasn't me alone. Like, we had help.
Right.
Tons of help. And I went back to De Anza and started taking chemistry and biology and microbiology and pathophysiology and all those sciences. Like if you want to be a nurse or a PA or a doctor, you have to take all those basic sciences. And I started doing all that. Yeah. And then I transferred to 5 branches. And I went to Chinese medicine school, and it took me, it's a 4-year program, and it took me 5 years.
Okay.
And that's because like one of those things where during that time, another part of my story is that it's halfway through Chinese medicine school that I actually find out that I have ADD. Mm-hmm. And like when they're starting talking in Chinese,
wait a minute, you didn't know?
I didn't know I had ADD until I was 42, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least that 40, maybe 44. I was like 20.
It had never come up.
No, because it had never. Well, people would say that
because I know you.
Exactly, it had never come up because of the fact that. The term they use now is called twice exceptional. And what that means is this, and this is not an ego boost thing, this is just the facts, is that I have a high enough IQ to overcome my deficiency with the ADD. So, like, I mean, I was always...
by the way, I love that term, twice exceptional.
Yeah, exactly. That makes you feel very special. But that being said, it's like with that, and so, but Chinese medicine school, like you're saying, having a mortgage, having a marriage, my kids were like 3 and 1 when I started.
Oh, they were little.
Yeah, and I can remember holding my younger daughter in line while I'm registering for classes and having one of my classmates hold her so I can do the paperwork and then hand my kid back to me. Literally 1 year old.
Yeah.
And that being said, and then going to school and trying to do as much as I could. And some semesters I had to cut back because I just couldn't hang with the load. Okay. And I thought I could, but I couldn't. And, there was a lot of pressure in that situation. And there were times...
You had pressure to finish because you needed to start making money.
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. I needed to finish and start making money and start, having a career. And then, that's the other thing about that was that the last semester of my school, I was hit on my bicycle really hard. And I was hit by a girl behind Los Gatos High. She knocked me down and stuffed me underneath the front end of a Ford Escape. The only thing that saved me was my helmet.
Are you kidding me?
No, I totally, like I had a bad concussion.
I didn't know.
And my arm was black. From my elbow to my wrist was black. And I had a welt the size of a softball in my forearm.
It didn't break your arm?
It didn't break my arm.
That's crazy.
The Chinese people said that it was because I'd done so much Tai Chi and Qigong that my life force was strong enough to deal with that. I have no idea, but that's what they told me. And
the force is strong in this
one.
And
so I had all this crazy stuff go on, but I had to hire a tutor and go because to leave Chinese medicine school, you have to pass these board exams, like mock boards, so you can take the real test, because it's all regulated by the state of California. And I couldn't pass my mock boards because I couldn't think. Because a concussion, I thought like, oh my God, I've hurt my brain.
Dude, concussions. I had one. It takes forever to come back from that.
Oh, exactly, it's huge. And that's where I got turned on to cranial sacral work. And that's what turned me on. I had cranial sacral work done. I had acupuncture done. I had chiropractic done.
We're gonna have to do some cranial sacral. I need some help.
Oh, absolutely. No, that's awesome. That stuff is amazing. I can't push cranial sacral enough.
Got it.
And then what happens is that it's a luxury. When I go and take my board exams in February of 2011, I have a hernia mesh infection in my belly button because I got a hernia from lifting weights wrong, and my belly button had a little hole, and I had it fixed, and they put the mesh in, and the mesh got infected. So now pus is coming out of my belly button.
Come on.
Okay, and I've got this thing going on. I'm just not right. And then and 4 of my 6 sinuses are infected. And my Dr. Jerry says, you should not fly to LA to take your exam, but they only offer the exams twice a year.
Oh my
for my, so I'd have to wait a year. If I miss it, I have to wait 6 months. And I'm prepared all the stuff.
And you were already under a lot of pressure.
Yeah, and my wife's like, if you don't take that test, I'm going to divorce your ass. It was gotten to this place where it's not good. I'm like, fuck this, I need to go. And
you went?
Yeah, I flew down to LA. I had a fever. I had like 100-degree fever. I was sick as a dog. And it was a 2-part exam, and I had 2 4-hour parts. So I was there for like 12 hours, but I'd gotten there and was in exam for like 8 hours.
Brutal.
And the first part I did really well, and the second part, it might as well have been in Spanish. I mean, I had no idea what was going on. And it was so funny because I have ADD, I had a room by myself, and I had this gal with me, and I remember looking at this lady. Yeah, this proctor, and she was an elderly African-American woman. And I said, can you do me a favor? And she goes, can you pray for me while this? I need a little help. And she was like, honey, I'll pray to Jesus for you. And I was like, far out, man, whatever. I'll take Jesus. I'll take Buddha. I'll take whoever's going to help me. And I did that exam, and I have no idea. Like Katie would ask me, like, how are you doing? And I'm like, how'd you do? Did you pass? I go, I got no clue. I had no idea.
None at all.
And it took another month for me to find out. And I'll just put it this way. You know what they call the last guy to graduate from med school?
What?
Doctor.
Oh,
you know, like
right.
I had passed, and everyone in my class had passed, and then within 30 days after that, starting in April, I was up and practicing.
Up and running.
And just doing it since then, and just go. And it's been a journey, you know. It's one of those things where it's like the cost was not the education was expensive, don't get me wrong, but it was a lost opportunity cost. You know, like
what do you mean?
What I mean is, like, let's say I was making $100,000, and when I stopped working, and I went back to school, and for 5 years I didn't make $100,000.
Okay.
So that's money that could have been spent and invested or whatever, and it's that lost opportunity cost of school.
Okay.
And that's where during the prime years of quote unquote. But the other part too is that what goes on now is that I love going to work. I love my job. You know, I'll tell you, if you're going to have an acupuncturist, if anyone listening here know this, have an acupuncturist who's into what they do. You know, like you want whatever. It doesn't matter what you're doing, but you want someone who's into what they're doing.
Absolutely.
You know, like I may not be the best at what I do, and they may have a lot to learn, but I'm into it, and I'm more than willing to tell you that that's not my gig. Like, for example, I'm not an acupuncturist who wants to help women get pregnant. I mean, nothing against that, and I think that's great, and you can make a lot of money doing that, but that doesn't interest me.
Okay.
You know, or like you can do like there's a
special. So that's like specialization.
Yeah, exactly. Like specializing in like there's like rejuvenation facelifts. You know, doing with acupuncture, and you can do that. I'm like, I don't know, that's not really my gig.
Dude, you're in Los Gatos. You can make so much money.
I guess, but I you know, I
There's
like
some chicks with money there. Let's just say.
Oh yeah, my ideal client is probably a woman between, let's say, 25 and 60 who drives a Tesla.
Oh.
You know, they got disposable income or whatever. But women are better at taking care of their health than men. You know, I mean, like for example, you know, you just think about your significant other, and it's like, yeah, your arm's going to fall off. Now you come and see me. Why don't you come and see me when your arm was just hurting a little bit?
Yeah.
You know, that kind of stuff. But it's all good. I mean, that thing about it is like lately, of all things, I've had a run of working with young people, like doing acupuncture on and stuff for like 14-year-old boy, 16-year-old girl, you know, people like this. And
what are you training them for?
Anxiety, depression, injuries, migraines, headaches, you know, all sorts of like brain chemistry stuff.
Okay.
You know, but the other part too is interesting is that like what I think they like me is that I actually listen to them and I ask them like relevant questions and kind of engage in their lives. And also I'll tell them, I go, you know what? I'm really impressed. You know, like when I'm impressed with kids, I tell them that, you know, like you're a good person. You should know that. You know, like I don't know if there's enough people in their lives who are cutting to the place of like, you know, you're a decent kid and that's important.
Yep.
You know,
kids need to know that they're a good person from people other than their parents.
Exactly. I think that's really true. And also I think kids know, like for example, some who I know their parents, I go, you know, letting people know that you come from decent people. You should know that you come from good stock and you come from people, because there's a whole survey saying about people that kids who know their history have a lot more fortitude or whatever. They can deal with a lot more stuff. Like you hear about, like, let's say my wife's ancestors were, this one woman was from Ireland, and she came over by the boat at 14 by herself and struck it off in the New World, and you know had a life in the East Coast or whatever else. Like, or like I hear about my ancestors from Norway and Sweden who come here, you know, and they had a bunch of terrible stuff happen when they were really young, and they made it through. And it's like, you know, like who you come from, who your stock is.
It matters.
Yeah, it can have an impact on your psyche, I think. You know, like I tell my kids, you can deal with this. You know, like we were talking before about adolescents and young people and all the bullying and stuff like that. And I try and tell my kids that you have the tools. Yeah. You know, you have the tools to deal with this. You don't have to go down, you know, we go high when they go low or whatever that is. But saying, hey, you know what? Sometimes the best thing is to disengage. And the other one, like with young people, I think that what I go to is that they don't know what they don't know. You know, and neither did I. And like the only way I got it is like, you know, the great thing about being sober for a long time is like I remember all my failures. You know, like that stuff. And back to the Chinese medicine stuff, it's like one of those things where it was a big jump. And there's days when I'm worried about, have I made the right decision or what's going on, like from a financial standpoint, being in the valley and money and all this kind of stuff. And then at the same time, I see people who are like dying on the inside who, you know, they have a lot of stuff, but they don't have any peace of mind, you know, and that's one of those ones we're trying to do that.
No, that's a terrible place to be. I heard the other day that this guy that I used to work at HP,
yep,
somebody I know died at work.
Oh,
isn't that just the grossest thing ever? surrounded by people. You know, sometimes you care about the people that you work with, but typically, like, they're not your homies.
Oh, not at all. They're your workmates. I mean, sometimes, like, I mean, I get it. It's like some of the guys I work with I see more often than I see my family, but they're not my confidants.
Yeah, I think I might almost rather die alone than surrounded by people who don't care for me.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that a lot, you know.
Oh, listen, let's talk about that. I don't like that.
I'll change subject.
That's terrible. Yeah.
All right.
Let's switch gears and talk about something happy.
Okay, whatever you want.
What brings you joy these days?
What brings me joy?
I know you do I know your work is a big source of joy for you, and God bless you for doing what brings you joy. Because listen, we've had a couple tragedies lately in our circle of friends.
Oh, absolutely, a lot.
Yeah, we lost Katie. She was the second interview I ever did, and I've just been shattered about that. And then another friend of ours, you may or may not know, this young guy, 28 years old, passed away. He was sober, but it was a tragic accident. Yeah,
I heard about that.
And the message I keep getting is there is no later. If you have a dream on your heart, you need to find the courage. And I just, you know, for me personally, I struggle with that.
Oh, sure.
I would rather do this full time than sell software.
Exactly, or find something. But, you know, that's the thing where... what gives me joy? I mean, like, I'm one of those ones
How
where...
did you find the courage to do what brings you joy? Maybe that's a better question.
You know, it's one of those things where that's a good question. And when I think about it, like, kind of the flippant response is that I don't feel I had too many other options.
Okay.
You know, I mean, like kind of the no-brainer response is like, you know what? I was called to do this thing. I've always wanted to do this kind of thing.
And you finally just said, fuck it.
Yeah, exactly. Let's do this, you know. And once again, it's like I had a great partner. I mean, I can't tell you how much, you know, my wife and I have been through a lot of stuff together, you know, and it's one of those things where without her support, there was no way I was going to be able to pull this off.
And by the way, I absolutely adore your wife.
Yeah, you know, and so
amazing.
And it's one of those things where we were able to pull that off, and then, you know, like, how did I do it? It's like, I remember seeing this chiropractor who was a mentor of mine, and he was like, "You're just one exam away. Like, just do the next exam, take the next class, just do the next thing, and just keep chugging forward. Mm-hmm. You know, just keep going forward. What you need to do." And that's what ended up happening was that I just one class at a time and one thing. And there were times when I was definitely scared, and times when I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. You know, especially when the ADD was coming up, and like, because, you know, when you're talking about the formulas like Guizhou Tong and Chai Hu Chao, you know, like these formulas, and it's like these stuff where I'm like, I don't know if I can remember all this stuff, because I'm a visual person. I'm not an audio learner. Oh. You know, if you draw it on a board, I can figure it out. But if being in classes with people who just talk the whole time, they'd lecture, and I'd be like, you know, I'm done, please. You know, I remember talking to the people in my school saying, hey, you need to dress how I learn.
Yeah,
you know, we're not in China, and this is not what's going on. I'm paying to be here. And it was one of those things where I was kind of driven. I mean, I guess let's put it that way. It was like one of those things where this is what I wanted to do, and I figured it out, and I kept on, you know, gently pressing forward, I guess. You know, it was like one of those things where, and now, I mean, I still have a lot to learn, and a lot of, you know, like, it's not in the room when I'm doing acupuncture where I struggle. It's like doing the paperwork with insurance and deciding, do I want to deal with insurance companies, and do I want to just have a cash-only business and just let you deal with your insurance companies? Because the reason why I have to charge so much more for insurance is that I have to spend so much more time and resources, and that's the one thing we don't get back. And that's the other thing that drove me, is that you talk about things like the one thing we don't get back is time.
Right.
You know, and it's like the time keeps on kicking away. You know, I think about Pink Floyd quite a bit, you know, and that being said, where it's like, you know, what am I doing? And what gives me joy also is like, I enjoy hearing my kids laugh. You know, like that's what like if I can make
children's happiness.
Exactly. And even having my wife laugh, and like getting a good laugh about something. Laughter is like one of those things where outside of like the most healing thing I think there is laughter.
Absolutely.
You know, like and I love self-deprecating humor. You know, it's not like the humor of something, but that being able to, like, you know, like life becomes a shitstorm sometimes. You know, like shit just happens, and you're just like, oh my God, you know, like telling a story. My sponsor's dying, my roommate's OD'd, my girlfriend's dropped me to live with my friends, I've broken my hand. It's like, oh my God, you can't, like, this is crazy. And just being able to, like, laugh, you know, that's one thing, is that tragedy plus time equals laughter.
Is comedy. That's a Shakespeare saying.
You know, I believe it. You know what I mean? Like, someone told me that the other day, and I was like, yeah, that's true. You know, because I was with some guy and we were talking about some terrible stuff that happened, like, and it's like over time though, it's comical now.
Yeah,
like,
listen, that's why you go to, when you're sitting in the rooms at a meeting and people share this, people say these tragic things and everyone's laughing because we all get it.
Oh, exactly. Well, I brought my she's now passed away, mother-in-law to a meeting. And she was appalled. She was,
we were laughing
exactly. At. That's not funny at all. I'm like, well, what you don't get it's super funny because we lived through it. Mm-hmm. Like now we are sober. Now the thing that they're not getting is that other component of like, it's past that. It's like the things now is like to go, where do I like make like what gives like happiness and joy is like making a difference in people's lives,
Absolutely.
trying to help out with my family, trying to do my best for my wife, who I feel totally endeared to, and making sure that the people around me feel, I guess, safe or whatever. I don't know if that's the right word, but like this idea, like really, like when I kind of think about like those 5 love languages, one of those things that my mother's a service person, and when I really cut down to it, I'm a service person.
Yeah.
I like helping out to a certain extent, but I'm not one that's like codependently, like for example,
not to your detriment.
Yeah, well, like as an example,
we don't do service to detriment.
For example, there's certain people like I go to a dinner party and time to clean up, and if there's someone else cleaning up, I don't jump in. I don't jump in. I sit around, But if someone asks me, I will. But if someone said, "Hey, I've got a headache," I would jump in.
Oh, okay.
Like with my skill set, like with my unique skill set, like if you told me you had a headache right now, I could get some needles and I could, like I've done, like I call it like a wild acupuncture. Like a friend of mine's wife had a migraine, and I had her sit in the bed of my truck, like put the tailgate down on my truck and like, come here, and washed her off with alcohol and put needles in her right there in the back of my truck in a parking lot. And I'm like, feel this. And I did my thing for about 15, 20 minutes, took the needles out, and like, how do you feel now? My migraine's gone.
Migraine, that's serious.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, they're like, whoa. I'm like, that's the power.
What did you do?
Yeah, that's the power of what I do. It's like, and it doesn't work that way all the time, but like as an example too, this whole migraine thing is that I have a person that's seen me that tells me they had a migraine every other day for over a year. And I
how do you function?
Exactly. And then I started doing my gig and did some acupuncture, and they went 3 days, which had been huge for them, and then had a migraine, and now I've gone more than 6 days without having one.
Wow.
And it's like, and that's kind of like amazing to me.
That's so freeing.
Well, that they can actually kind of expect to have kind of a normal time, like do what regular people do. And the thing that blows me away is that like now I'm consulting with one of my teachers to make sure I get the Chinese herbal formula right. Like I've gotten you this far, but how do we get you to the next place?
Optimum.
Yeah, optimum, and so you can function and that kind of stuff. And then making, like for me, is making a business that's sustainable and doing, like making sure all the books are done and all that kind of stuff. That's the part where it's like, oh yeah, I got to work on, paying taxes and, making sure that this person's being paid and making sure that there's retirement money and all the business end of it. That's where I need more, like, that's where I'm going. Okay. Because I feel good at my craft. Yeah. There's always more things to learn about my craft, and I love that. It's like being an artist. I mean, that's what it is. Like when I think about who I am as a person, my undergrad degrees are in mathematics and economics, and I really was a math geek and an economics geek, and I really like that stuff. But I'm not an accountant. Right. It's a different kind of thing. I'm far too creative. Yeah. Like with the left brain, like, oh, I'm left-handed, I'm non-linear, ADD, creative, alcoholic guy. It's like this kind of crazy storm of stuff. But it's like when someone walks into the room, I'm like, oh, your hip hurts you? Let me just see what's going on with you. Tell me about that for a moment. And like in 15 minutes, coming up with a formula, like a plan, and then going, okay, we're going to do this.
That's awesome.
And then the thing about it to find out is that maybe it works, maybe it doesn't that time. But at least I know what didn't work, so that gives me another plan to go the next time.
Got it. No, that's amazing. I love that. That's having an actual effect on someone's life. It's life-changing.
Oh, yeah. It makes me kind of, not cry, but it's like one of those things where I'm like, huh? Like, I don't have that false humility, like I didn't work hard or whatever, or like I really want to make this clear. I'm one of those people that I go, I'm not like, I'm a healer and my hands are up, like, quote, unquote, like right. I'm not the healer type, like, oh, look at me, I'm special. I'm a guy who's just into like what I do. Yeah. And that's the part where it's like being into it, like, wow, that's
in all of the process.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, I get that.
Because it's like one of those things where like, okay, I'm putting little pieces of stainless steel into your body.
Yeah.
I'm not.
The body is doing it.
Yeah, exactly. The body's
You're
like
facilitating.
Yeah, facilitating someone's healing process and it's simple. It's more complex than I think anybody really knows. But it's not like I'm just tapping into the nervous system. Oh, you're tapping into the nervous.
Yeah, there's more to it.
Yeah, there's more to it because sometimes I'm tapping into someone's spirit. Sometimes I'm tapping into their body in a way that not has anything to do with their brain or their mind. It's more like their body is something. Like trauma.
Listen, I don't know if you've read this book. It's Power versus Force, or maybe it's Force versus Power. I just started listening to it yesterday.
Oh, really?
But it's the science meeting spirituality. Like science, the whole premise of the book is about how science is starting to catch up with spirituality. It's starting to be able to explain things like coincidences and.
Oh, really?
And yeah, you'll have to check it out.
Oh, definitely.
I'll share it with you later.
I'll
put it on the notes on
because that's the kind of stuff I dig. I mean, because it's
so
one of those,
into it.
Well, there it is because there's tapping into undefinable things.
Yeah, there are things. Listen, we haven't figured it all out, obviously. Otherwise, our lives would be perfect. So there's other things going on.
Exactly. Well, and the whole thing with the recovery gig too. It's if everything got great and I was fine and dandy, I would have left the organizations long ago.
Right.
I have better things to do with my time than sit in a room and listen to other people and be of help service. I'm way too self-centered for that. But that's where my bread gets buttered. And that's where I get my messages.
Listen, it's a convenient place to... I understand that 12-step communities are not for everyone. You can still get sober without them. But it is a very convenient... And especially if you find a good meeting or community, it's an easy place to go to get out of self, to practice confession and be of service and find people who actually can benefit from your experience.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a very convenient place for many reasons.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that the whole thing is that convenience is the big thing that I got from the old timers that I try and instill in people now about being there and doing the steps is that in the end, it's when you see someone else's lights come on, and it's a direct result of your actions. I helped this person,
our participation.
Our participation there helped change that person's life course, and that's kind of
to be a witness to that is amazing.
Exactly. That's the bigger gift than just getting my piece of the pie. Because I know lots of people have come and they're gone and they've got their lives and they're doing their thing, and I'm like.
Whatever.
They miss out on a big component.
On the best part.
Exactly. It's like it's almost telling that it's like that story of the circus. The boy goes to town to see the circus. Dad gives him a quarter and he waits there. And the circus walks by and he sees everything go by, the elephants, all the stuff. And the all come the clowns and the guy sweepers, and he throws his quarter in and he goes home. And he thinks that he saw the circus, and it's a sad story because he never even made it under the big top.
Right.
The big top is being of service to other people in recovery in a way that God uses you, or the higher power uses you in a way that you don't understand.
Yeah, when you participate and go through the process.
Yeah, exactly.
Listen, we could bottom line a lot of the lessons, but it's about actually going through the process.
Oh, sure.
That changes us. So.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, it's and I've been in my recovery time. I've had I've got a room full of sponsees and my grand sponsees, and we're all reading the book and doing that stuff. And now I sponsor 2 guys, and that's great. And it's those guys are my, I'm so grateful to have them in my life. Absolutely. I'm so grateful to go to meetings. I'm so grateful to have our friendship, and to know your husband and to do the things that we've got going on and go, wow, this is it's to me, recovery's been like nothing else that's ever happened to me. It's like one of those things where I'm like, I don't know. I mean, you're in the same boat, I think. It's like I've been sober longer than I was alive before I got sober.
Yeah, I'm getting close.
That is my drinking and using I count for about 11 years. I've been sober for 30. I am, way past the time that I, got sober at. And,
sure.
And so all that stuff is I don't know any different now. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I'm still as not amazed, but how does this really work?
Yeah.
What
it is fascinating.
Yeah, it is fascinating. And it's kind of fascinating to me, like how acupuncture really works, or this kind of stuff. There's all these things in my life that are all about how I like acupuncture or Chinese medicine, and my spirituality kind of component to that is around this idea that Chinese medicine's been around for 4,000 years. American Western medicine as we know it has been around for about 200.
Wow.
Okay, so that's a huge difference in time, and there's no way in 4 years, 5 years of education I'm going to learn 3,000 years worth of knowledge.
Right.
You know, it's an undefinable well of knowledge for me to learn from. And that's the same kind of concept there is for me of understanding a higher power or God or whatever you want to call that. It's like, it's undefinable how the depth of that. I don't know if I can ever reach, like people who tell me they know answers, they scare me. You know,
I know, right?
You know,
Did you see my face as soon as you said that? I was all, what?
You know, like you know all the answers. I'm really afraid of you.
You
know, like just recently I was with an Episcopal priest, and he's a cool guy. And I just said, hey, let me tell you. I go, your higher power God is like, I have no problem with that at all, but he's a subset of a superset for me. Like my God is too big for one religion. Like I don't think he fits in just one of those things. There's too much water to fit in that little bucket.
And how did he take that?
He was cool. I mean, he didn't show any change his game face or whatever. He didn't change anything. Like he was
just like, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Or like, and I told him that I was in recovery and that, you know, I'd been in recovery this amount of time, and no, there are no meetings at his church. And I thought that was interesting, and he was sad about that. He thought he would like to have recovery meetings at his church.
Nice.
You know, and so he sees the value in it, and you know, here's a guy who's like, you know, I don't know what his day is like being an Episcopal priest. You know, having how people engage or reference, you know, like keep him on a pedestal or whatever. But I'm like, dude, I just want to talk to you. You know, and engage. Very cool. You know, and engage them because it's like, what are you like?
Yeah, I'm sure he loved that.
You know, or what's your belief? Because I mean, like,
what's your deal?
Exactly, what's your deal? Like, you became an Episcopal priest. That's kind of weird. I mean, like, you know, like I was driven this because my life completely fell apart and I crashed and burned.
I know. Listen, there are people out there, Dan, who are actually well adjusted. And
oh yeah, exactly.
It's fascinating.
And meeting these people who are like, why did you have to harm yourself so badly?
I know.
God, I wish I knew the answer to that question, because I would not have if I could have done it out with harming myself.
Oh, I hear you. That's so funny.
Oh my God, it's just, you know, and they're like average Joes, like, oh, you don't drink? Yeah, I don't drink, you know, and you know, like,
that's always a fun conversation.
You know, I've got an allergy. What do I break out? I break out in felonies. You know, I mean, like I do things that are just, you know, like I like to tell people, I'm going to be there at Christmas. I got to be somewhere at Christmas.
I got to be somewhere at Christmas. That's awesome. Well, listen, we're actually coming up on our time. And as you know, the way we wrap up the podcast is since it's ODAT, which means one day at a time, how do you stay sober one day at a time? Do you have a process, a weekly morning routine?
My one day at a time thing is typically when I wake up, before my feet hit the ground, I say the 3rd step prayer and I say the 7th step prayer, you know, in recovery, you know, and Then also I like to, in my office I have a prayer of St. Francis of Assisi, which is that one of Let Me Be a Channel of Thy Peace.
I love that one.
And that's what I've got on my wall, and I try and do that. Then what else do I do? I don't take nothing no matter what. I mean, that's.
Do you do a certain number of meetings a week?
That's a good question. I usually make, at this juncture, I usually make 2 a week if I can, like have things. But sometimes if I can pull off 3, but it's usually convenience, you know, like my thing is like trying to be around my kids. Like, I'll just say this. Brock.
Oh, Milton
Brock said never let more than like
2 days
go by without, and I try and do that, you know, sometimes 3 days maybe, but 2 or 3 days, and that's it. I kind of go to a meeting, or I talk to someone in the program, or I talk to my sponsees, or I talk to somebody, I reach out, I stay connected. And the other thing I really do is that I think more than anything else, at least with my sponsor or with somebody, I'm authentic about who I am and what's going on.
Yeah,
you know,
stay connected
and being real with somebody. Like, you know, like people want to put us on pedestals who've got time, and I'm like, I'm just a guy who hasn't drank. Nothing more, nothing less.
Very clear about that. Yeah,
exactly. You know, it's like there's things that are, you know, oh, okay, so it's all screwed up, but oh well, that's the way it is.
Yeah, just because we get sober doesn't mean that life is perfect all of a sudden.
No, it's not. I was like I say, it's not get sober, win prizes.
Right.
You know, says the guy who's got all the prizes, you know, from some people's perspective, you know what I mean? It's like,
right.
But I wasn't like looking for like, hey, I'm going to get all the prizes.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you didn't hear the time when I was angry Dan, or like in a depression, or my roommate's ODing, or, you know, all this other stuff that's going on. You know, like the whole thing been going, the whole thing about between 7 and 14 years, I think it is no man's land for a reason, you know, because I think a lot of people don't make it between 7 and 14 years.
Wow.
You know, that's a whole other story. But
It's interesting. But even though that period, the 7 to 14, there's a lot of relapse there, but that's sometimes a necessary...
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because haven't you seen some people with long-term sobriety that are still sick?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you can get sicker
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah. Well,
I mean, and that's normal, right? Like our mental health, it ebbs and flows sometimes,
Sure.
depending on certain situations. And in long-term sobriety, you get comfortable with certain things, which allows certain character defects to slowly develop, so slowly that we don't even notice that they're
absolutely.
happening.
Well, also, I think more so, even getting more scientific than that too. It's like, we're like serotonin, dopamine fiends. I mean, that's why we're doing it's all brain chemistry. And that being said, it's like you can change deck chairs on the Titanic easily. You know what I mean? It's all going down, but it's like, I can go from cocaine to porn to food to gambling, shopping, exactly. All that stuff, and you can change on that if you're not aware of what's going on. And we've had discussions around people we know who've had that kind of fall, and people are still activating in those behaviors where it's like, wow, what's my like, that's kind of like the dog training thing with my dog. It's like, what gives you a big huge dopamine release? And then we need to look at that and find where's a healthier way that you can get that dopamine release. That's something that's, like I was taught a long time ago, like, use your powers for good.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to be obsessive, compulsive, be about your health, not about, cleaning the bathroom or whatever, I
feel like the only two things to do in moderation is step work and exercise.
Exactly. 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 But that's the kind of stuff where it's like, those are the things where, like, day in, day out, trying to do that, I also go back to that whole thing where it's like, one of the things they told me, the step before the steps for me was, hey, Danny, you need to remember, if you don't know what to do in any situation, try and be less of an asshole. You probably won't get drunk.
Don't be a dick.
Exactly. But I don't think some people get that message. I know. It blows me away. Or I don't even know what the was a female, like, don't be a bitch. But it's like one of those things where it's like, you need to, like, try and be a kind and decent. I mean, that's one thing I'll tell you, just to sum up. One of the things, my one sponsor, first guy told me, it was like, you never want to get too big here. That was the thing. And my sponsor, Don, was always about, like, you need to be a gentleman. You need to be a kind and decent human being. My sponsor now, Al, is a guy who, he is very much about being gentle and in the flow of life and being at peace and cultivating, peaceful behaviors. My present sponsor now, for a long time, had me lay down in his house for about 5 minutes and meditate before he'd talk to me, because he's like, you're resonating so fast, I just can't even deal with you. And then we're talking, like, 15 years sober. This is not like, I'm brand new, but, like, you need to, like, calm down how you resonate.
Listen, that's why prayer meditation is a big part of the 12-step program.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, meditation, big healing medicine.
I think more so than prayer for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
More so for me. I mean, I don't know about other people, but, like, meditation is key.
Key.
Well, because the reason why meditation is so key for me is that it's rolling your eyes to the inside and seeing your internal landscape. Mm-hmm. And that seeing an internal landscape, like, what's driving me? Because people think, I'm going to have this blank experience where I'm going to feel nothing. And it's like, no, that is not what's going on. It's more like you get to see the rabbit cage full of rabbits bouncing around and what they're doing, or whatever, your screaming monkey or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there you have it.
Exactly.
Listen, thank you so much for coming. I really enjoy talking to you, and I know you're doing that hour meeting next month. I'm really looking forward to that.
We'll see what that comes out
I
like.
cannot wait to see what you decide to wear. Should be awesome. So, Dan, thank you
you're
so
welcome.
much for being a guest.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you very much.
One last thing before you go, if you enjoyed the podcast today, please don't forget to subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher and leave a review. And if you'd like to make a donation to the podcast and help me keep the lights on, you can do so by visiting odatchat.com. There's a donation button or membership button on the right-hand side. Have a great day. Thank you so much for joining us.